Hello everybody, today's video is about graphic design and typography features. We're going to look at really famous popular logos for different brands, and then I'm going to get you to look up some logos yourself and label those typical features on them. Okay, here we go. Right, so we're going to start with holding devices, and they are these things around the edge of logos, like the Nintendo one here. We've got that's called a holding device around the edge that holds everything together. The Ford one here has the same, and the Vans logo has the same. This IKEA one's actually got two. It's got the oval one and then the rectangle. The Lego one as well has the box around it. That's the holding device. Okay, and these help sort of contain the logo and sort of give it a border. The next thing is serifs. So this is typography, really, serifs. And now the tails on the letters, like the Sony one here, it's this bit here that sticks out. And on the end, you've got them on the top there and at the bottom there. Google actually simplified its logo. From the old one, used to have serifs, like on the L there, and you see on the G. But it simplified it to get rid of the serifs. And when you choose a logo, say on Word, if you're choosing a font, if it hasn't got serifs, it could be called sans serif, so without serif. Some fonts have the option of with or without. The Rolex example there has got serifs. See on the L, the E, and we have I shot the serif. So the next one is kerning, and this is spacing between individual letters. Kerning is something you don't often notice unless it's quite bad. So the example here with I'm sure it stands out to you that the space between the T and the H is much bigger than the space between the H and the E. So it just sort of looks quite bad. It's a bad example of kerning there. Zara has really close kerning. They've sort of made a feature of it, trying to make their design stand out by overlapping the letters, close kerning. Nivea has also tried to make a feature of its kerning. I'm sure you'll notice that the space between the I and the N there is much larger than all the other letters. All the other letters have got equal kerning, whereas this one has got a big gap. So that's kind of making a feature of the kerning as well. Kerning can also be used, you could say these letters here they've had kerning done to them, and these ones haven't. You see they line up, whereas these ones overlap, so these ones have had kerning applied. Kerning is very similar to tracking, which is the next thing. Tracking is the spacing between letters and words, but this is talking about over the whole a whole sentence of letters, say, or a whole word. It's not just between one letter to the next, like here. This is the kerning, one letter to the next, and they're different. They vary depending on what the letter is. Like on this last page, the A and the V overlap a little bit more than the W and the A here, you see. So that's different depending on what letter's next to it's next to. But tracking is equal spacing, and it's sort of the width apart as well. So this has got small tracking, medium, large, widely spaced tracking there. Next one is leading. Now leading is the space between baselines, which is the line that the word runs along. If you're using Word, you can change line spacing. You can change it to sort of 0.5 or 1 or 1.5. This is very similar to that, except with graphic design, you'd have much more options. So it's not just 0.5 or 1, you'd be able to put it wherever you want. So Popular Mechanics here, this logo, they're very close together, the words. You wouldn't ever see writing in a book like that, would you? It'd be a bit more difficult to read if you had lines of text like that. But there's an example of leading in a logo. I do notice this im's got quite a narrow bit here. That sort of stands out to me on that one for some reason. So that's leading. The next one, this is talking about key lines. So a key line is a boundary line that separates colour and monochromatic areas. So the A here, the red colour, the infill on the colour, and the blue background are separated by this black key line. You see the black line around the edge? And on this volcano over here, there's the black line down here, which separates the orangey colour and the background. The reason we have key lines is because when it comes from printing, when colours are all printed individually, like in this example here, you can see the three different colours, the yellow, the cyan and the magenta. They might not all exactly line up perfectly, and that can make the edge look a bit blurry, or it can, on this A here, it can leave a little gap if you see the red and the blue haven't been printed perfectly lined up. So they put a slightly thicker black line around where the colours change, and that covers that up and makes it stand out. It sort of makes it pop. So you can see the difference between that one has the key lines, that one doesn't. It just makes it look that much better. These colours used here, you see the cyan, which is the blue, the magenta, which is the pink, and yellow. Those are colours that printers often use today. And you'll notice sometimes when you print, you have the option of colours is CMYK. So that stands for cyan, magenta, yellow, and the K is key, which is black. So it's still sometimes referred to as K because it's used for the key line. Icons. So everyone knows these icons. They're really simple little bits of graphic design which just show a logo or a brand. These seem to be getting simpler and simpler over the years. I think as everything's moved onto phone screens, brands have been sort of simplifying their logos to make them stand out on a small area. This is an example of a logo that's evolved over the years gradually. And this was a new update in 2019. See, they've simplified it from 2012 to 2019. Sort of simplified it and just made it flat colour. I don't know if that's a reaction to their emission scandal at Volkswagen, but maybe they wanted to sort of change their image after that, so they decided they needed a new logo. And brands actually spend millions of pounds on changing their logos like this. There's a really good documentary on Netflix, if you have it. There's a series called Abstract, the Art of Design, and there's one episode about the guy redesigning the Instagram logo, and it's the one that he's making the new logo, the one that's sort of rainbow coloured in the background with the white camera on it. And it's about that, a whole episode about that. It's actually really interesting. So I recommend you watch that if you can. Moving on, these are some more interesting logos. So that one at the top, New Man, I thought was quite interesting because it sort of almost looks like a shadow or a reflection. Some of these have got hidden details, like the Formula One. The one is sort of the negative, it fits in with the negative of the F. This mountain has a bear hidden in it here, and then there's the famous FedEx hidden arrow here. Everyone knows that. It's a famous bit of graphic design. The Tour de France is quite an interesting one because it's got the Tour has got the bike in it with the sun as well. It's quite a nice bit of design. And this one here is sort of a bit abstract. Vaio. This is from Sony laptops. I don't know if they still do them. Sony Vaio. But you can hardly even tell that's V&A. It's barely looks like lettering. So here's this is quite a good example of all the typography. You've got the serifs, really nice decorative serifs on this old font here. We've got the space between the lines, which is the leading. We've got the spacing between letters, which is the kerning. And what else have we got? We've got the holding device around the edge here. Tracking and kerning, remember the difference. Kerning is the difference between the space between two individual letters, and tracking is the space between words and letters, sort of uniform along a whole line of text. It's not something that's found in as often in logos because they don't often have that much text. I want you to have a go at this today. So if you haven't got a printer, you can just write down what these are here. So you're going to have to explain what typefaces of fonts are, what serifs are, what holding devices are, etc. I want you to explain what they all are. So you can either print this out and write them in there, or just write them out on a piece of paper at home and send it to me. And at the end here, I've just included some designs that people have played with. So we've got the coronavirus one, we've got stay inside, locked in instead of linked in. The Starbucks mermaid has got a mask on, and the corona need new name extra. I actually think the corona is probably selling a lot more than it ever did, getting all this publicity, but who knows. Anyway, I want you to have a look up 5 logos of your own on the computer. Just have a look for 5 logos you like and label all those things on there. So you're labeling holding devices, key lines, kerning, tracking, leading, icons. Okay, and send it to me. Send your work to me in an email. All right. I look forward to seeing what you've produced. All right. Thanks a lot. Bye.